happy Monday, everybody. CB, JG, another library sessions in the book here. We got a special guest today, Mr. Kevin Harvick. Thank you for stopping by, pal.
No problem.
It's good to see you, especially under the circumstances. I know you got a lot of stuff going on. So we're going to dive into your racing career, obviously business career, which has been fantastic. We talked about it last time on library sessions about the one thing I can give you is just you've morphed into this racer and then now into the businessman that you are. And what was that transition like? And, you know, how do you feel like that's affected maybe the future for your family and other families?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the things that people don't realize is to be good at racing, you better be pretty savvy at figuring out how to wind up with some money, right? So, and I think for me, I guess when you go back and you look at the early days, and I always wondered why. Well, you know, my dad gave me my first checkbook in 4th grade. He's like, "Well, you're going to pay all the bills on the race team, and you're going to call the sponsors to
I didn't know that
to ask for the money." And so, yeah, every year when we would race the go-karts, my dad would have. I mean, obviously, I know now, but he would have all the sponsorship lined out. But he'd make me call and ask all these people, for the money, or we didn't go race, and I hated that. But God. Those were good lessons, and I think as you go through life and you realize what all those things were, but we were really good when we had the race teams. Obviously, I got to where I needed to be, but when we had the race teams at KHI, we were really good at managing the partnerships and the sponsorship and the people. And as we went through the years, we were able to maintain that sponsorship, and it made my racing career a lot easier because of the relationships that we built year after year.
And that's probably been a big reason why KHI has gone into a lot of different various, whether it's golf or driving or now being made of the cars, the cars series and just everything you've got to do was for those life lessons. That's something I'm definitely trying to teach my kids is it costs money to do fun stuff, and then you got to be good at it. Which there's sacrifice come along with that. Who were some of the most influential people in Bakersfield that helped you?
Well, Bakersfield really set the tone for my racing career. And, I think it really wasn't one person.
Right.
Bakersfield is a racing community, and it's also the biggest small town you'll ever live in, you'll ever see. And you know exactly what that means.
Absolutely.
Separation.
Yeah. And so when I didn't have tires, it would be, Ken Small. If I didn't have tires, it would be Marion Collins. If I didn't, I needed an engine, it would be Gary Collins. You just never.
Hank Toohey.
Yeah, the list is a mile long. And when you went to see Jim Ward at Award Signs, it's a thing that this town is really good at, and that is helping people get to where they want to be by just that support. So without Bakersfield, I don't make it.
And it seems like you've taken that same model that you grew up on, and now are trying to influence other young kids' life that inspire to be that. With obviously now racing's completely different with how much, the economic aspect of it is how much it takes to do anything.
Yeah, but think about it. Everything that we did and everything I did in racing all revolved around money. And it all seemed like a lot of money to me.
Still does, right?
At the time, racing's expensive. It's always been expensive, and it's always going to be expensive. And I think it's I guess it's all relative. And when we were racing here, I spent a lot of time in your garage when you were growing up as a kid, whether it was working on your dad's car or melting lead in the driveway at 2:00 in the morning.
Those are two completely different aspects. So he was not very good. So
it doesn't matter though. But it was situations like that where I could go help your dad and he'd let me drive the car every once in a while. Or I'd go help your dad and he'd give me a little bit of money and I could go buy tires. Because I helped him work on his car. Or, Bruce Sarver. I worked at the go-kart shop for Bruce for a couple of years building engines.
Leading Edge wasn't on Chester?
Leading Edge, yeah.
Leading
Edge Motorsports. So it's the work and time and effort, and it is great, but the people and the relationships and that network of people. And one of the big things that I tell all of our young kids now is you may have a contract of things that you need to do or have to do, but it's okay to go places and have dinner with somebody. It's okay to go over and shake that guy's hand that is not in your group, or it's okay to talk to somebody or stay 30 minutes extra to because you're having a good conversation, because you just never know who you're talking to.
That's a true story.
You never know whose hand you just shook or the impression that you made on somebody. And, I think when we were talking about it earlier, and when you have a conversation, when I had a conversation with a kid that was at an autograph session 20 years ago, right? And, yeah, your kid.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, when you have that conversation 20 years ago, and now you come back and you realize the impression that you made on those people's lives. And I really realized that in the last year of my career, because I had a lot of people come to a lot of races. A lot of race fans come from all over the world to come to the last race, and to hear all those stories. I didn't hear them all, but you hear a lot of the stories. I heard enough to you get so focused on being a competitive athlete and trying to get the most out of your situation that you lose sight of the effect that you have on people's lives who are sick, who are a race fan, who are going through a hard time, and racing gets their mind off of things, or whatever that scenario is. You forget the impact that you have on people's lives. And when you get reminded of that, and I got reminded of that a lot the last year, it makes you realize that the platform that you have is more than just racing. And so going back to the advice for the kids, you never know somebody else's situation. So it's really your job, and it is a job to be a human and do the things that
which a lot of people lose sight of that. Right? A lot of people lose sight of that.
Yeah, it's like they get into their job, and the next thing you know, you have this privilege to ignore people or treat somebody differently or bad or whatever that is. And I think it's I grew up having to shake somebody's hand or ask somebody for help or whatever that was in order to get to the next moment. Not even the next step, but just to the next race or the next practice or the whatever that was. It was all moment by moment every time, and it was always in town. It was always by the help of the town and the people here.
And this town still is so gracious. I mean, I can be the first one to say
exactly the same.
It's a lot of us wouldn't be in business here if it wasn't for somebody helping you out.
Your businesses are the same way. Your businesses are the exact same way. It's all about relationships.
Yes.
Whether it's you go to a cancer function and you get to meet, a little kid, and here they are dealing with something that is so much bigger. So when they come up and they don't want to ask those questions, but could you sponsor $1,500 or $2,000? It's like, those are the people you don't say no to, because those are the people you won't succeed eventually. Now, then you have a couple of your spoon-fed people in every line of business that is, I think it doesn't become discouraging, but you see all the hard work that goes into your career or your family's career, your brother-in-law. Myself, I've been so blessed with beautiful family, wife that just really supports me. And that's the support system you've had, not only from the town, but then you surround yourself with people once you get out of that realm, right? With your kids or your wife, and because it's pretty much becomes you against the world at that point. And, there's a funny story. So if you don't know this, people at home, Kevin is probably one of the most competitive people I've ever been around in my entire life.
I'm not sure how to take that.
Well, I'll tell you, it was no different than we're racing Sega at the house, and you're literally taking me out every lap, and I'm thinking, we're just playing a video game. Eating quesadillas and having fun, because
we all watched you at Mesa Marin, man. Yeah. I mean, we know the competitive Kevin.
I watched him take my own father out. The same guy he's talking about being at the house, I watched him take him out because my dad was too slow, and I was like, Kevin doesn't care. And then you get back to North Carolina, where there's talent and there's money everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And I think what you've done has been incredible, especially now, inspiring others and then really putting your money where your mouth is on the business aspect of it. I think it's been fantastic to watch, and can't tell you how proud I am of what you've accomplished. And I know there's a lot more accomplishments coming down your line, and this town couldn't be prouder. I know that your family couldn't be prouder. I definitely know that, as your friend for a long time, that I'm definitely proud of what you've got to achieve. And I think the achievements are going to continue to compound.
You're a hometown hero, man. You're one of the guys that your name is synonymous with Bakersfield. I mean, Kevin Harvick. I'm not going to say all the other names because I'm not going to make comparisons. There's a lot of good names that came out of this town, whether it be country music or other athletes that have made it to the NFL or those kind of things. But you're one of the guys that we're all very proud of.
Yeah, and I like that, right? Like, I like to be – you want to be respected by the people in the town and the place that got you to where you're from, or to where you are, and that be where you're from. But I enjoy coming back, right? Because I have so many relationships with all the people, for the most part, that helped me get to, the point that I got to. And now you see these full circle, life moments that come through with their kids and things that are happening, along the way with business or whatever that may be. So we've always stayed busy in this community, whether it be at the Boys and Girls Club or the Police Athletic League or the high school.
Doing a charity golf tournament right now.
Yeah, and that's why we're here. We're here for the AJGA golf tournament this week at Bakersfield Country Club that our foundation.
And how awesome is that?
Yeah,
that's happening in Bakersfield, and that's bringing junior top ranked players from all over. I mean, they're coming from all over to come to this.
All over the world.
Yeah, all over the world.
Yeah,
and that's and we have some local boys like you once were that are playing in that thing with these other guys, and they're going to get a chance to show what they've got.
Yeah, and this is it's the same situation though, right? Like, the AJGA was a part of the golf tournament at Sedgefield Country Club in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I was a member there at the time, and
got to play in that at one of your events, which was fantastic.
I actually played with Wyndham Clark the first time that I played in the AJGA event, and so when we had the foundation going, and we kind of got separated, and the tournament director wound up being in charge of the AJGA, and we got reconnected, but those relationships and
full circle again.
Yeah. So we got involved with their scholarship program. We finally got a tournament. I think we were 4, 5, 6 years into the waiting list of the tournament, and one of the prerequisites that I had was to bring it here, because I think that those types of events are fun to have. And Kevin Small is obviously a big part of helping with the Bakersfield Country Club to host the event. So just tying some of that stuff back together and being able.
And that family's done
a
lot for this town.
Absolutely.
The Small family's done a tremendous job at helping a lot of events that nobody gets. They don't want the credit. Kevin's been like that. Kenny was like that. So it's fun to be able to watch that, and then to be able to see you reconnect with that. One of my favorite, I think probably my favorite time ever that I've ever got to be a part of, watching just anybody that I knew do something cool, was your third race in Atlanta. That was something that I will never forget, because that was life-changing. And I don't know about you, but your top 5 races, where does that rank at?
Yeah, that's a good question, because really at that time there was that time was really weird, right? Because I don't really remember a lot of the things that actually happened on that day. I can go back and watch it now, and you have all these things memorized,
Emotions.
but it's not because they're memorized from the moment. And that year, the whole thing with replacing Dale and everything that happened over those 3 weeks, it was such a blur, and everything else was already all planned out. And I think if I wasn't so ingrained in everything that we were doing at the time with the Busch Series car, Delaney and I got married the week before. So, there were so many things that were already planned out and happening at that particular point. And I was just buried in the racing, and you're buried in the race team, almost secluded from the media and the significance of everything that was happening. So I had tested Earnhardt's car the year before, because Dale didn't test. So I knew the team, and the way that you just kind of slid in and started to drive the car, I didn't have to get to know anybody. Obviously the media situation was a lot different than anything I'd ever experienced. And, I think that the magnitude of the situation was really hard to understand, because we were just racing the cars, and I had so much going on inside the car that it kept me from doing a lot of things outside the car.
Well, then you're immediately polarized, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in front of the entire world, it's like.
Well, I knew it had changed when we got home from Atlanta, and you had race fans in your yard waiting for you with cameras and people, and I was like, oh. We're gonna have to get a new house.
Hold on, I didn't sign up for this.
I did not
cool.
sign up for that. I did not sign up for that.
I don't think anybody could.
Yeah, and it could have went 2 ways, right? It could have been a huge failure and that be the end of it. And obviously it worked out the way that it did. But it was always about taking advantage of the opportunity that you had in front of you to try to capitalize on it. to get to the next step. And that was just the moment. We'd already announced that we were going cup racing. We already had America Online as the sponsor. And my first cup race was supposed to be the weekend that I won my first cup race. That was supposed to be my debut in the number 30 America Online car.
You know, it's crazy. I remember sitting at the table when they showed up the 30 car back then. And I think it was a Winn-Dixie car. And I remember we were sitting at this old table and you're like, I think I'm going to take this ride. And then next thing you know, just unfortunate things happen.
Yeah.
And I'll never get the emotions around the racetrack, the team. And I'm thinking, I hope he's taking this all in because they're going to dry in the house.
Yeah.
It was like,
No, that was a big race. I mean, you won that thing by like 0.006 seconds against Jeff Gordon, right?
That's right. Yeah, it was close.
And then when you won, you get out, you salute everybody with the 3, right?
Yeah.
And that was just a cool.
So there's only a couple things that I remember from that race. And one of the things that I remember from that race was coming to the white flag down the back straightaway. The people had climbed up on the catch fence.
Wow.
So they were hanging on the catch fence down the back straightaway. I remember the most random things. And
how do you see that when you're going that fast? I mean,
well, I mean, the fence kind of hung over the racetrack a little bit. So, the people were kind of over onto the racetrack. But I remember that
security's trying to get them down.
I don't think at that time there's so many people that the security was
irrelevant at that point.
Irrelevant. I mean,
fixing this.
140,000, 160,000 people there.
Wow.
So I mean, I don't remember a lot of things about that particular day other than the people hanging on the back straightaway fence coming to the white flag. I remember that part. I remember coming to the checkered. I should have chosen the top, not the bottom, or I should have chosen the bottom, not the top. But I left the bottom open and about lost. But I remember the burnout. And
awesome.
And how loud the crowd was. Like you could
crazy.
hear the crowd over everything that was happening with the car. And when I was driving the car slow, I mean, the noise that came out of the car was, or out of the crowd, you could hear inside the car. And that was the only time that I ever remember that happening was.
Well, I just remember Chocolate absolutely just was beside himself, crying and the sobbing. And it was like, I'm thinking to myself, I can't believe this just happened.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you go from the trucks, the Porter Cable truck, obviously the Spears truck. Before that, there was one of the most iconic pictures with you and Hornaday beating on each other going down the stretch, and that was so much fun to watch. And then you're in the AC Delco car and then win that championship, and then to get the cup. I mean, unreal.
Let's talk about. I mean, what was it like just getting your first, Craftsman Truck Series ride?
Yeah. Well, my first ride, I mean, we built the truck in our garage at our house, and I think for us, the Truck Series it was built in Gary Collins' shop right there off of Turn 2. I mean, we had the first Truck Series exhibition race right at Mesa Marin with those 6 trucks that they had at that particular time. So in those days, you could build your own truck and be somewhat competitive, and especially there. So we built our own truck. The first year I guess would have been 1995. And we ran that truck at Mesa Marin. 96 was a weird year, but we ran again. I think we finished 11th in the truck race that year at Mesa Marin. And then 97, everybody was, or the sponsor that I had was out of money, and so I had to decide what I was going to do. So I decided that I was going to go be a mechanic at Spears and hope they would let me drive. That was really the only thing that was going to work out. Everything here, it had gotten too expensive, and everything here with the family race team, had kind of exhausted itself. So I went to work for Wayne and Connie Spears as a mechanic for $25,000 a year. And I went in there hoping that they would let me drive. They let me drive. I guess it would have been about halfway through the year. I ran the Winston West race here at Bakersfield. We prepped the car in the shop there and came up here and raced. And I got a couple other opportunities, but my first in the West car. But my first opportunity in the truck was 97 at Louisville, Kentucky. And,
right.
Yeah, I drove the second Spears truck at that race, and we had a good race, and it wasn't much longer that I had the opportunity to drive that truck for the rest of the year in 97. And in 98, we started the year and ran the West Series and the Truck Series full time for Spears, and then at the end of 98, I left and went to Brad Doherty's truck.
Porter Cable.
I
was there for that.
Drive the Porter Cable truck.
And Kenny Irwin was actually the driver before you on that truck.
That's right. Yeah, Kenny Irwin was the driver, and his agent at the time, Fred Lexi. He's still with me, and that's when I got my. That's when I had to get my first contract, because I drove the Porter Cable truck, got excited at dinner, signed a letter of intent for a 3-year contract. And at the end of my Porter Cable deal, I had to buy myself out to go to work for Richard Childress Racing. And so I just bought my first house. I had to take a second loan out on my first house to buy myself out of my contract. And
see, these are the things that people don't know, though. We've had some other library sessions where people don't understand the struggle sometimes of these hard decisions you've had to make.
That's right.
In order for that next step to happen, right?
All those next steps are hard decisions, and we made those hard decisions along the way. Whether it was, I spent about 2 weeks at Bakersfield College, and I'm like, I don't know. This
was that during the Camelot days?
No, that would have been before. That would have been before those. Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I was the mechanic.
The mechanic. Didn't it burn down?
Camelot. Yeah, we caught it on fire one night. We had the oil too close to the solvent tank, I guess.
That was so funny.
Or the space heater. The solvent was too close to the space heater. And
oh my God, that's amazing, the journey, right? How that journey has now brought you to working for Fox, doing that, being a commentator.
Those nights at Camelot were way fun.
They were so much
of the fact,
fun.
After hours, we bring out all the souped up go-karts.
Well, you would soup them up. We all got the slow ones.
Oh man, we had this great mechanic. I can't remember his name. I was just a tire changer. I mean, I was a general mechanic, but he was really good at what he did. And he would soup these things up, and we'd keep all the good ones over there, and we'd have 4 or 5 of them that would just haul ass.
That was so much fun.
Oh
and they would haul ass. The ones you
Everybody
could tell
knew
that
we were going
up.
to the kart track before we went home. And before it was all said and done, we had the managers and everybody down there.
They used to be almost 2 hours to be able to just race one race.
Oh, it was
wrapped around the entire goddamn park, and it was like, what are we doing here? But it was so much fun.
Oh yeah, we had fun.
And they had a qualifying night. I'm sure you remember that, where you go out and qualify, and then you could race. And it was like, I don't know if I really got $20 to race one race, but that place is still there. I believe it's It's under new ownership, but still, I look at that little warehouse where you guys would work on stuff. I'm like, I can't believe they redid that. That is awesome. Because now my kids have gotten to race.
It was just a little
it was fun. It wasn't much.
That's right.
It was a Butler building before Butler buildings were cool.
That's right.
But there's so many great times. I mean, and to have Kevin on library sessions is just an absolute, it's a treat, because we've got one of the legends, not only just from Bakersfield, but in just NASCAR racing. I mean, this year, I thought it was really neat when you made the top 75 drivers of all time. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. You're definitely a future first-time ballot Hall of Famer. No doubt about that. I think the rest of NASCAR understands that. The one question I have for you that's so funny, something that you loved more than anything, probably any trophy you ever got. Do you still have that baseball card collection?
I do. And you know what's funny about the baseball card collection?
That was the only thing off limits in the house, was that baseball card collection.
I still have it.
That's amazing.
And so Keelan's super into the whole trading card stuff now, and we have a great relationship with Panini, who obviously produces a lot of the trading cards for every sport. And so to bring that whole baseball, it is unbelievable how much different it is in today's world
compared to where we used to trade cards.
And all those old cards that I thought were badass, and I sent them off to get them graded. What a pile of shit collection that I had.
And it was unreal. I mean, you had good ones. I mean,
I thought they were good cards, but I obviously didn't take very good
care
of them.
I know they were off limits. And Joe, this is for you. When I say off limits, when we would come back to the house, they sat in a little thing outside this kitchen that had carpet in the living room.
Yeah.
And it was like, do not touch any of those cards.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, my God, what kind of cards do you got? I mean, my God. But those were always the days that I remember, the fun.
Oh, that was the greatest house ever.
It was the greatest house ever.
So I bought that house. That was the first house I bought. And this house had wood paneling.
Oh gosh.
It was the most old school lake house that you've ever been inside ever. But the whole house had wood paneling all the way through it. So, were you there for all the demo days?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Was I there? You were gone racing.
You were the one doing all the demo.
No, I was literally helping out with Al. Yeah. Oh my God. Al was there.
Yeah. So we decided that we were going to completely gut this house. And at this point, I had no idea how much anything cost. So we gut this house and we take all this wood paneling down. And I mean, when we gut it, I'm talking, we gutted the thing down to the studs.
I love the fact that he says we, because I didn't own one part of it. I just knew I lived the bottom of the stairwell next to you.
Yeah, but
and it was scary though. That house was scary. I'm sorry.
Weird. It was kind of a weird, creepy vibe.
Oh.
So we
the wood paneling throws that in there right off.
Yeah, but the wood paneling wound up being absolutely wonderful. So Hornaday had this skid steer. So he went and bought this skid steer. And we had wood chippers. We had stump grinders. We had wood splitters. But he brought this thing over. And I'm like, hey, I want to dig the back out of this house. Is actually be lakeside. I said, I want to take this deck of this concrete out and I want to dig a little porch down underneath right here. I want to put a wall up and then we'll put a deck over the top of it. Okay, so one day he comes over there and usually by lunch we were all drinking beer. And so he brings this skid steer down and he starts digging this hill out behind the house. Okay, so we take the concrete off the top, we dig this out and we're like, wow, we get it all dug out and we're like, what a great way to get rid of all the wood paneling. So we go get all the trash and we pile it in this pile that we've dug out on the lakeside. And we go get some gas and we dump the gas on there and we just light it on fire. And we burn everything that we didn't want in the house in the pile in the back. The neighbors thought we were crazy, but they loved us.
Yeah.
And so fire was about to go out and Hornaday get the skid steer and just drive right into the middle of the fire, get the bucket, flip everything upside down. This thing would take back off and light up on fire. Well, that was all great that we got rid of all the wood paneling and the 2x4s and everything. But when it rained, we were in big trouble because it started washing all the dirt out alongside the concrete that was left against the house. And so I'm like, we got to do something. So we go and we get an estimate on this Keystone wall and it is like $25,000. And I'm like,
I don't even know how you afforded that back then.
I've spent everything that I had on this house. Where am I going to get $25,000 to build this retaining wall?
Oh God. But do you remember what it was?
We had to build the retaining wall.
Well, we didn't have to.
The house was going to fall down. The house was going to fall down.
But do you remember what was on the retaining wall? They're still there.
No, really?
Do you not remember
I don't.
The stones?
No.
Oh my gosh. So when Hornaday was digging that up, he found all the part of the retaining wall was old tombstones.
Really?
Do you not remember this?
I don't.
So Hornaday, I go back after I get home from Iraq on my second tour, and Sterling now is living in that house, and Jason's living in the house next door. So I tell Sterling, I go, you know what, let me walk over here to the middle that separated the property line, which there's no fences back there if people don't understand this. It's just literally you walk in your neighbor's backyard.
Yeah.
And I walk over there and they're still sitting there and I went, oh my gosh. And Sterling, it scared the absolute shit out of her. She goes, Chris, tell me that's not real. And I said, oh, it's real. I was here for it. That is real. I can't believe 12 years later, it's still here.
The tombstone.
Yes.
I don't remember that.
Oh my gosh. And Hornaday would verify this tomorrow because I'll never forget. He goes, oh my gosh. And then he leaves to go to a race that following week. And I'm there by myself and I'm thinking, house is dark. It's under construction. There's only a couple of lights at work. They're the lights that were hanging on.
Somebody's coming to get me.
I'm dead. Yeah. I'm over. It's over.
Yeah. You and Mills had it under control.
Well, those were the days, though, that were the funniest days.
My dog.
Yeah. Well, but still, that dog ain't going to help me.
No. She'd have licked you.
Yes. And so.
Mills had her own room, by the way.
But sure did.
Yeah.
And it was some of the best times to actually watch you go through that transition to turn into this enterprise you've now created for yourself, and knowing that how hard, and any of the kids that are watching this, trust me, hard work pays off. Because I got to personally watch it. I pray to God that I've been a part of on the same kind of process, but it's a lot of work, but you can do it. If you really want to try, you can do exactly what Kevin's done, exactly what a lot of those guys did. I remember going to California Speedway and Jimmy Johnson's driving the Excedrin car, the 92 car.
Mm-hmm.
And you had kind of finally made it way bigger than him. And I remember Jimmy sitting there by himself and not one person came up, asked for an autograph, and you're just packed. And I was like, hey, Kev, I'll be right back. Because I didn't want Jimmy to be like, I have no fans.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, he's
hitting it big time,
yeah. Right? And those were just fun days of racing. And I think a lot of you had those same stories.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me that there'll be another, racer into the Hall of Fame, and he just happens to be from Bakersfield. I think that's amazing. And then what you've done, like I said, with whether it's the AJGA, the Cars series that you've got partners in now, what you've done for KHI management and the people you've got to help out in that aspect of it. Just very proud of you, pal. And it's been an absolute pleasure to watch. And I know you get bombarded all the time. And I just really appreciate you coming on library sessions and talking a little bit about your life and how it's transgressed, and now going through Keelan, now racing, what that's got to make you feel as a dad.
Oh, it's fun.
Because he's pot committed.
Yeah.
And I know, I'm sure he doesn't have it easy with you, because I just know how competitive you are.
Yeah.
But it's just amazing to watch. It's a lot of fun, and I think we're all proud of you here. And I definitely appreciate your time. And if there's anything you want to leave us with, please leave it with.
No, I just appreciate everything that you guys do for me and have done for me, and everybody's always been so supportive of everything that we've done. We try to do the same thing. Obviously, I have more time on my hands now, so
I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, look, people will say, "Well, I think you're busier now." I might be busier now, but it's by choice. I don't have to be somewhere on somebody else's predetermined schedule. Now, I do have, I had to show up at work for Fox this year, but that's not really. I wouldn't call that a job. I guess it's a job.
It's a job, but you did a fantastic job at it too.
Though? Like, what is that transition like? I mean, you're showing up to the same racetracks. Normally, you're getting in a car. Now you're in the announcer booth.
Look, I had no idea there was anything on the other side of the racetrack. So now all the TV compounds are outside the racetrack. I'm like, where's the TV compound? So every week was new for me because I had to figure out where the TV compound was. And we had, you've got the hair and makeup over here. You've got production trailer over here. You've got your own security. I mean, we're pampered. It's great.
That is awesome.
But
that's what hard work. Yes, yeah, I'm definitely not pampered.
But it's I took the Fox portion, and I'm sure you've seen, and that I've raced a couple times now in the late model car, and I didn't want to do any of that until I understood 100% what I was doing with Fox, and I felt like that. I feel like that's a huge responsibility to go in and explain what's happening with our sport, fit in with new people. But in the end, it's the same thing. It's a team of people.
It's just probably a little different, right? It's got to be a little different.
Yeah, it's a different team, but there's no pressure. Like, I get done with the race, I take my headset off, I put it down. I'm like, well.
See, I think there'd be more pressure because you're going live and you've got to talk about things live.
Oh, no.
In between you and Boyer, it kills me.
The hardest thing about the broadcast is just doing the lineup. Having to talk about the predetermined lineup, and here's Joe Schmo from Bakersfield, California. And so, but Mike Joy and Clint Boyer, they were.
Mike Joy's a legend.
He's a pro.
He's a legend.
Yeah, he's a pro. Clint's really good at what he does.
Clint's
too.
dude.
People give him a lot of grief for being Goofy Clint, but don't get that wrong. Goofy Clint's paying attention to what's going on.
He's a sharp guy on racing as well.
He gives a crap about how that product turns out, and so we had a great time. And it was a smooth transition into the TV booth, and I still get to be around the people that I like to be around. The world's wacky and crazy in today's world, and I like my racing people and going to do the things that I like to do on the weekend, and having Keelan's racing and being able to go to the racetrack and learn all these short tracks on the other side of the country that I had never been to. I'd never been to most of these little places that he's going to race. And I've tried to race the cars too, because I want to understand what he's talking about. So we started the 2 late model stock teams. We've got the super late models, and it's very similar to how we built KHI when we first started with the truck teams. I like to get in and do all the dirty work, right? To figure out, okay, the cars suck. This person's going to need to be better, whatever that scenario is, to try to make all those hard decisions. And so being able to get in the car and learn kind of an old craft, but it's a craft that I haven't.
Right.
It's much different racing than what it is on
I
the
thought it was
side.
just fun there tonight watching you on the flow. I was
Yeah.
like, I know you're having a blast, but it's amazing how young some of these kids are, because I know for a fact when you were coming up young, these old timers were like, who's this kid?
Yeah.
Who's this kid?
But you got to have the veterans and the mainstays in every series, and that's how you teach the kids how to race. And the Cars Tour stuff is fun because we have a lot of those veterans, and the platform that we have right now with Flow and the Cars Tour and everything that is going on. It's the we have the premier late model division in the country,
and it's only going to grow.
Yeah, and it just continues to grow, and so. That is that's fun to be a part of and be able to experience that. It's kind of like going full circle, knowing that Keelan's most likely going to come through our cars and our shop and be able to run a lot of those racetracks before he gets to run a lot of those racetracks. He runs most of those racetracks in his legend car, but I wanted to understand, okay, what do these things feel like? What is it? What does this tire feel like? What does this car feel like? And be able to understand the style, so I know what the hell I'm talking about with him,
right?
Because everything that I've been doing in cup racing is, sure, we can talk about the basics, but I want to understand the general concept of what it takes to drive those cars and make them tick. So,
well, I think we all look forward to watching Keelan and the rest of the young kids his age that are coming up through the cars and coming up through Trackhouse and all that, and how that is going to just change the way that young kids look at racing.
mm-hmm.
And one of the things that Tim Huddleston and I, your partner, and Kevin Harvick's Kern Raceway, which was so fun to talk about, was people forget how much fun racing is when you would bet a thing of bubble gum on your favorite car just because it looked cool.
Right.
It'd probably go to the back. It's the uglier car that was, typically won him.
Right.
But that was still fun. And that's now fun for my kids to be able to do that. And
I just got to hear about your 2007 Daytona 500 win. What was that like?
Now that one I remember a lot of because, and so this is a crazy small world. So a couple things came out of that. So the producer that day, you remember DirecTV when they had the, what they call it?
Race Pass or something like that.
It was like Hot Pass or,
something
whatever,
like that.
whatever it was called. But you could follow one car. They had like 5 cars that you could follow along. So the producer on my car that day is now the producer at Fox for the broadcast.
It's a small world.
Yeah, Chuck McDonald. So he was the hot pass producer on my car that day. But that day was really weird because with like 15, 16 laps to go, we'd pitted, had a hole in the nose, and came out in the back of the pack and restarted like 32nd. And it just that whole run from the back of the pack all the way to the front.
that's who you beat, Mark Martin, right?
Yeah.
And who pushed you? It was
Matt Kenseth.
Kenseth pushed you.
Yeah.
That's right. That was shocking, actually.
Yeah, and then the next year I
Pushed him to
helped
win.
push him to win the Daytona 500.
That's right.
But, that was just one of those magical moments of, and I tell Keelan this all the time. I say when qualifying goes bad or something goes bad, I said, man, there is nothing like winning races when they don't even know where you came from. And doing stuff that you're not supposed to do. That kind of stuff is really what made me tick. Like, I love those moments where they're like,
God,
oh, he's done.
amazing.
And that was one of those days where they were like, he was done. Like, the crew had the pit box all closed up. They were just sitting on the pit wall. We couldn't have made a pit stop if we had to in the last 15
And I think that
laps.
was 3 wide going down the backstretch.
Yeah, it was.
It was 3 wide.
It was an intense. It
was good racing though. God, that
last
was
15
fun.
laps, but. That one, I mean, that was a big deal. Winning the Daytona 500 and
Huge.
everything that comes with that.
And the Brickyard.
Yeah,
I mean, you
Brickyard.
pretty much.
I mean, for me, the
You
Brickyard
won the Coca-Cola 600 too.
Yeah, we won all the Crown Jewel races, so that was that was great to experience all that. The Brickyard was great because being from Bakersfield and growing up a Rick Mears fan, Roger Mears fan, Roger Mears Jr. fan, Mears gang in general. To be able to go to the Brickyard and win. And we were fortunate to have, some good success there, winning a few times. So for me, I grew up wanting to race in the Indy 500, right? Like that's what you wanted to do. When you were from Bakersfield, California, you raced, you wanted to be just like Rick Mears. and you wanted to race in the Indy 500, and so to go there and win, let alone just drive there, was quite a treat.
I think that was actually NASCAR's that was the greatest pivot to go. We're gonna run an Indy.
Mm-hmm.
We're just gonna call it the Brickyard 400, and we're gonna bring our own stuff here.
Yeah,
because the first race was like, this is freaking awesome.
Yeah, well, and you know, those are the biggest crowds that I ever raced in front of. I mean, you're racing in front of 250,000 people.
That's insane.
So, you know, you got those seas of people, and the first year was the best one because it was more of a traditional Indy 500 style celebration. You know, you go do everything, and then the people in Indy, the fans in Indy, they're so well educated when it comes to racing, and they know what's happening.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of race fans that are very well educated about motorsports.
Well, there's only two things in Indy, right? You got Indiana, who's your basketball, and you've got the Indy 500. Or now the Brickyard 400. They had a football team
that was pretty good for a while, and then Peyton.
Well, he's doing okay.
He's doing fine. But you know, the best thing about that Indy 500 or Brickyard 400 win was the pace car ride afterwards. It was myself, Richard Delana, and you ride the pace car around and you wave to the crowd. Well, I mean, half the crowd is still there, and those are the people that know. But to be able to just do some of those traditional Indy 500 celebration type things, and then kiss the bricks and all the things that come with that, it's just one of those moments where it's as close as you're ever going to get to living out your childhood dream that you always wanted to do, and that was to win it at the Indy 500. Well, we wanted in a stock car, but still pretty close.
Still extremely cool, man.
Still extremely cool.
Yeah. And still kiss the bricks, like you said.
That's right.
I mean,
well, then now you get to live out your adult dream, right? Of being a business owner and watching your kids grow up.
I love the business side of things because I've always had so much help, and I still get a lot of help from everybody, but I can be way more involved now. Right. I think I annoy them more than anything because I just constantly think about, well, we could do this or we could do that, and trying to make up for lost time with all the things that you weren't able to do on a day-to-day basis. And now you can do, a lot of those things and keep up with things, from a detail standpoint to kind of push things over the finish line. So, yeah, I mean, but still, I mean, those are all things that I choose to do.
Right.
It's not like I have to do them. So
you get the opportunity now to do what you want to do.
That's right.
I mean, I think that's the beauty of anything. When you hit a certain pinnacle, you get to go, now I actually want to do this.
And it takes that pressure off of you to where you can enjoy it. Right.
I'm not there yet, but I'm trying to get there. That's going to be a fun day. I don't know when that day is going to happen, but I look forward to it.
You got a lot. Did you read all those books?
No, I can't read.
He did not read all these books.
I mean, we got Huck Finn back there. I think there's Harry Potter book. I just can't read that. Yeah. The names are too big.
There's a lot of. Are there any picture books back there? I mean, that would be more along the lines of the ones that I would.
So there's some things, folks, that are not going to change. I'm just telling you.
You guys are getting a little personal though. I heard a story earlier that I've got to get out on this thing. I got to hear about you losing a tooth, Chris.
Yeah, how'd you lose that tooth?
I told you it was during the thing in back of Hornaday. He had a Chris Craft boat, and we went out on the lake, which was so much fun. Lake Norman's just beautiful anyhow, is why you're going back there. But it was just one of those things that Candace Hornaday kept pressuring me to get into it, and it threw me out and knocked my tooth out, and I could never find it. And then at Kevin's house,
what was this thing you got into? Because that's the
so we had this tube, and it's like a barrel, and it's got the handles on the inside, and the rope on the front is in a swivel, and you just drive the boat in circles until it would just whip the thing around so fast, it would tumble so fast, it would spit you out.
55-gallon drum that just does not stop moving. And everybody thought it was fun until I come up and they all start laughing at me because I'm bleeding and I have no tooth. And I just got my braces off like 2 weeks before that. So my parents were not thrilled. I get a tooth baked. And
they were not thrilled with pretty much everything you were doing at that particular moment in life.
I would say that's probably right.
Yeah.
See, again,
we were having a great time.
No, we were having a great time. Yeah. I'm not going to say it wasn't fun.
We had a lot of top ramen noodles.
Yeah, we did. That and quesadillas. And some cold beer.
Yeah.
Which were fun days. And then the next thing you know, you make it. I come back to California. Horrible idea. But there's been some great people in this town. And that's the one thing I love about California is Bakersfield.
Thanks for everything you're doing, even for local racing. And, you're involved in that again here locally, and we're excited about things to come for that. And thanks for everything you've provided us in memories. Hometown guy, we're all rooting for you, watching, Sunday racing. And we're like, wow, look at what he did today. I mean, this is just awesome, man. And I had that story I shared with you earlier about the time we stood in line. Well, everybody stood in line. I said, hey, everybody that's in here is getting an autograph, Tyler. So let's just wait. We were the last ones
Sit the
up.
bench.
We were the last ones up. And basically you hung out until the very end. And I think we got more time than everybody else because of that. You kneeled down. He had like 4 die-cast cars, signed them all. He's 24 now.
Yeah.
And he remembers this like it was yesterday. Yep. I mean, it's one of my favorite memories of just something cool we did. And like, we got to meet Kevin Harvick and sign all the die-cast cars. We still have them. It's pretty darn cool.
Well, I'm glad that story worked out that way. So,
yeah.
And thanks for making me feel old. He's only 24 now.
It could have went way south. I can tell you, depending on what.
It was probably 6 or 7 when we were doing that.
See?
So, all right.
So it's been a while. So we're both old.
Well, JG, CB here. Kev, thank you, my friend.
Kevin,
appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
We wish you all the best in every endeavor you do. So thank you so much, Library Sessions. We're signing out. God bless you guys. We'll see you next time on Library Sessions.